Spirituality is not going to cut it. Wisdom won't cut it. And wisdom is an old English word, which is really about kind of behaving in a kind of sage, practically wise way in the world. Be wise. But even the word wisdom is a way of avoiding religion. We want to avoid religion. And religion, and I've spoken 1,000 times about the great failures of religion. We understand that. I take that as a given. I'm not suggesting we go back to the old religion, but religion means religare. Ligare means to connect, to be connected to the essential body, to be actually part of, entrenched in, rooted in, religare, right? I want to root myself in the actual, intrinsic, inherent field of the real. And religion, not in its old form, but in an emergent new form of religion, religion says, I'm committed, right? I'm obligated, right? It's not a hobby. It's not my feel good, right? I know I have good friends who are kind of completely kind of like, right, we're totally into spirituality and we speak a certain line and yet we want our son and daughter to be successful in the win-lose metrics world, even if what they're doing is completely not good for the planet. Doesn't matter. We just want them to be successful because we actually want to feel like they're successful. They've got a good job and they're making a bunch of money. And even if what they're doing, we don't even bother taking the time to check, is what they're doing connected to the field? Is it not connected to the field? So we talk spirituality, but really we have only one real value, success. And we would much rather our child be employed, successful, gainfully, right? Even if they're doing something that's fundamentally destructive to the fabric of the real, right? Then we would our child to actually be involved in profound religiosis, profound connection to the real, but without the trappings of external success. And that's true for all of us. We want to be successful. And then part of our successful is we want to have some love, and we want to have some spirit, and we want to do some medicine journeys, and we'll do some psychedelics. But basically, no, that's not going to do it. We have to be religious. And I want to just say we have to be religious. And I want to go into this. And religion means a couple of things. So I had an ongoing conversation with Michael Murphy, who I loved dearly and love dearly. It must be 95, Michael. And Michael founded Esalen. And Michael came to a bunch of our board meetings. And he's a wonderful, wonderful man. And at a very poignant moment between us, Michael said to me that since George Leonard died, I haven't had a friend like you. We had this moment of being just intensely loving each other and close. And, and then of course, then I moved away and we went in our own directions and all the voices were all the voices. But we had a very deep moment. And I love Michael greatly. And Michael, created Esalen. And Esalen is kind of the center of spirituality. And Esalen did enormously important things. And Jeffrey Kripal, I wrote a great book on Esalen, and it was an epic contribution. And it failed. It failed. I just want to get that it failed. And Michael would always say to me, we would eat at the Horizons restaurant in Sausalito, which I'm sure was Michael's place of convening. Michael lived at that point in Sausalito. And Michael would say to me, in Esalen, no one captures the flag. No one captures the flag means we can have crystals and we can have every form of spirituality and they can all contradict each other. And one can say, value is not real at all. And the other can say old style Taoist religion. And the third can do a certain kind of Hinduism. And the fourth can do, we're kind of like, we think, any sense of the good is absurd. You just should breathe in every day and be in the breath of life. And some were kind of pro-environment, anti-environment. It doesn't matter. Everyone should come and teach their thing. This is the place that spirit thrives. We don't check content of courses. It doesn't matter if the course is good and the person, and that's how they built it. This gorgeous rebellion against the old religion, utterly necessary, gorgeous in the early 60s as Michael and later George Leonard and Dick Price kind of put Esalen together, this gorgeous contribution. And it was a beautiful rebellion against religion. It allowed for the opening of so many beautiful things, and it was insufficient because what it did is it made a tragic mistake, and it made the mistake of all the transitional moments. Whenever there's a moment of rebellion, Rilke is that moment. Emily Dickinson's part of that moment earlier, 100 years earlier in history. Alice James, the sister of William James and Henry James, and really William and Henry were part of it as well. James wrote The Varieties of Religious Experience. They were a moment like that. Existentialism was a moment like that. Sartre and Camus and, the entire world, Husserl, right? There, even Nietzsche was a moment like that. Esalen was a moment like that. And the moment was in the founding of Israel, when the pioneers of Israel founded Israel and rebelled against kind of the biblical heritage, the heritage of religion, and said, no, we're gonna do something new, but we're gonna reject the whole old thing. All those moments of rejection of the old were important and sacred. They were rejecting something that had gotten broken, that had become corrupt. They were rejecting the dross. They were rejecting the deadness. They were rejecting the tragic emptiness of so many of the forms of religion and stories that had become drives for power and that had lost, right, the sense of the living God. And the prophets who rejected and argued against the corrupt structures of the temple. And in Jesus was one of those prophets, but it's in Isaiah. Jesus is citing Isaiah and Jeremiah, right, who challenged the temple. Whenever there's a challenge of the system, the challenge is important, but the challenge assumes that the essential values of the system will perpetuate themselves, right? So let me go back to Esalen. So Esalen assumes, of course, value is real, right? Of course, value is real. I mean, Robert Frost, right, the great poet, the Nobel laureate of the United States, right, writes these beautiful poems. They're all about value, right? We're in the world of modernity. Everyone assumes that value is real. Everyone assumes, even though philosophy had deconstructed and David Hume had ripped value apart, right, and existentialism had denied value in every possible way, right, in the 40s, and even though all that had happened, everyone assumed, but of course value is real. Of course the good, the true, and the beautiful are real. Of course we've got to create a society of ethics and of goodness and of integrity, of fairness, and of universal value. Of course we have to do that, even though we had deconstructed all of the foundations, right? We had to deconstruct all the foundations, but we still thought it's still going to last. But of course, that's not true. So what happened is essentially postmodernity rises, and postmodernity calls in all the loans, all the assumptions that value is real, all the assumptions that there's a field of value that lives in me, all of the assumptions that there's a direction to cosmos, all of the assumptions that there are plot lines that matter, all of the assumptions that life matters in some essential way. All that got called in. And basically, postmodernity says in one way or the other, read Derrida. I've read Derrida very carefully. Read Foucault, especially earlier Foucault. But dozens of other books, and our friend Harari is just the postmodern parrot. He parrots this position. And I've said it 1,000 times, any meaning, any value you ascribe to your life is mere delusion. And he uses the word delusion 10 times. It's delusional. It doesn't exist. It's not true. It's a made-up story. Human rights are made up. Rights are made up. There are no real rights in the world. They don't exist. No one has rights because rights are made up. It's like, and no one even notices. Harari publishes his book expressing this moment of the rejection of the whole thing. No one even notices it. Barack Obama approves the book. Bill Gates approves the book. Right? Jeff Bezos, right? Kind of our titans of industry, names and names. I've mentioned them 1,000 times. No one even notices that it happens. We keep doing spirituality. Spirituality won't work. It won't work. And the last dinner I had with Michael, lunch actually with Michael at Horizons, right? After talking about this for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, Michael said, wow, you were right, Mark. What we did in Esalen worked, but no longer does. It was a poignant moment. He said, you were right. Right? Actually, where the world is now, and I was describing the meta crisis, I was describing existential risk. We can't just say no one captures the flag. But of course, Esalen keeps doing what it's doing, right? And spirituality keeps doing what it's doing, but Michael got it, right? We can't just bask in our uncertainty. We can't do that. We have to establish certainties. And I want to get that with you. I want to get that with you. It's huge. There has to be a place where after all of right? Spiritus, the air, the breath. That breath, that air can't become airy. It's got to ground in a set of certainties. And those certainties have to be non-negotiable. They've got to be eternal certainties, but not eternity in the sense of everlasting time. Eternity, it's beneath time. We need eternal certainties. We need shared eternal certainties that are shared by everyone. Because when we don't have shared eternal certainties, those claiming certainty will hijack the day. Does everyone get that? And they will become much, much more powerful. Much, much, much more powerful than anyone else.